Well, let's take you now to Action SA Eastern Cape Chairperson Athol Trollip. Mr. Trollip, good evening to you. Thanks for your time tonight. Absolutely devastating what has happened in the Eastern Cape. Your party's response?
Good evening, Kathy. Our party's response is obviously we convey our heartfelt condolences to the family members who remain after the loss of these young lives, and also the parents. But our greatest concern, Kathy, is that this appeared to have been an after the end of term sort of pens down ceremony where young children were going to celebrate the end of term and their holidays. But that's not the biggest issue. Obviously, it's a concern that parents allow their children out at the early hours of the morning. My biggest concern and the greatest concern of Action SA is that there are so many of these taverns that are unregulated who sell alcohol to underage children. And the grim reality is that many of those people who succumbed last night in Scenery Park Tavern are, around 15 years of age. Now, I believe that we need to regulate all establishments that sell alcohol, and they should not allow underage people into those establishments. And if they do, they should be held to account. And it's also not clear whether the young children succumbed to whether it was a stampede or whether it was pepper spray or whether they ingested some kind of alcohol that had been concocted. But the worst thing about allowing young children into adult establishments is that they get exposed to consumption of alcohol and even drugs, and they end up being abused by adults. And the greatest concern is that the community have been complaining about this tavern to the South African Police Services. Apparently, it's open on weekends from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., right through the night. And nothing has been done about it. And now 15, and apparently even now there's speculation that there's 17 bodies that have been removed from that establishment. And it's just an absolute crying shame that we are going to possibly lose another generation of young people in this country to alcoholism and alcohol consumption and drug abuse.
In many ways, it also requires communities to begin having honest conversations about what is happening, because, in as much as we will rightfully lambaste this establishment for operating and existing in the way it is, it also raises the question about the responsibility that we as members of the community have when we see these establishments doing what they're doing, and what it is that we can do in as far as our own activism to ensure that they're not supported.
Kathy, I couldn't agree with you more, and my information from members on the ground is that the community has been complaining a lot without any reaction from the South African Police Services about this particular establishment. But I agree with you, it takes a community to raise a child, and it also takes a community to look after a child. But essentially, those children come from homes and they have parents, and the parents should take responsibility that their children are not out in the streets in adult entertainment centers consuming alcohol at all hours of the morning. So I think we all as South Africans, adult South Africans, need to take responsibility of looking after our children, ensuring that they're not exposed to this kind of danger, because it's a clear danger that they were involved in, that people have lost their lives. And I think we must all start reconsidering what our role is as parents and as role models and adults in this country, that we should be setting an example to the next generation. And I'm afraid that the example that's being set by adults in this country is woeful and it's not good enough. And we all need to understand that we need to up our game with regards to being an example to our young children.
Where do you think the greatest points of intervention are going to be, especially in this moment? We still don't know what the exact causes of death of all of these individuals are.
Well, first of all, I think we need to make sure that there's a strict regulation of sale of alcohol. So whoever's making alcohol should not just be allowed to sell alcohol to establishments that aren't properly licensed. And then there has to be very strict regulation of access to adult entertainment areas or to areas that sell alcohol. I mean, it's very clear in our laws that you're not allowed to consume alcohol if you're under the age of 18 in a public establishment. So any establishment that provides alcohol to underage children should be closed down immediately. And I fear, I know the reality. The reality on the ground is there's a proliferation of taverns and establishments across this country that operate way outside of any regulation, and then the alcohol manufacturing companies deliver alcohol to those institutions. And we really need to have a complete about-face in that regard. It can't be business as usual. It can't be a pursuit of profit at the cost of young lives and allowing children to be involved in adult behavior with adults and consuming alcohol when they clearly can't control themselves at a young age. And when I heard this morning that there were children as young as 15 years of age, I really was quite disgusted that we've got to this kind of state. It's really Sodom and Gomorrah kind of behavior in our country, and it can't be tolerated.
Action SA Eastern Cape Chairperson Athol Trollip. We'll leave it there for tonight.